Over the past few years, you've moved around like an individual who had no sense of direction, who didn't know what he truly wanted for himself. It's not that you didn't have values. It's not that you didn't have wisdom. It's that you spent so much time suppressing your inner voice that you no longer recognized it. You got so comfortable with handing over the creative rights to your story that it doesn't even occur to you anymore that you're free, that you could change almost everything about what your current experience consists of. That's okay. You were doing what so many individuals and entities and systems have encouraged you to do. They didn't just tell you to do it, they modeled it. Your parents, your teachers, your friends. And it just became the norm to you. And to a certain degree, you developed a sense of resentment toward others because you don't appreciate the way they handled you or mishandled you. You don't like where they took you. You don't like where your belief in them took you or your association with them took you. When all the while, you're the one who handed them the keys to your vehicle, the vehicle that is your life. So although you might not like the way they drove it at times, although you might not appreciate where they influenced you to arrive at, you handed them the rights. So you learn to forgive them for mishandling you. And you don't automatically assume that anyone who has brought you grief or pain or sadness is out to get you, is fulfilling some sort of malicious agenda at the cost of your happiness or your life. And then you say, hey, not only do I not assume that they're not out to get me, that it's not their fault that I don't enjoy many or any aspects of my life, but I forgive them for perpetuating a certain paradigm, a certain way of thinking and behaving with others. You know what I mean? And then you forgive the system itself. You forgive the schools for being outdated and for stifling creativity and self-love and emotional IQ and things like that. You forgive the system itself for how outdated it is. You forgive the certain programs or belief systems or political systems or whatever for not just being outdated, but for never serving you to begin with. And with that, you feel a newfound sense of freedom and power because you see what's happening around you. You survey your surroundings on a surface level, not as the person who's underneath certain structures, not as an individual who's surrounded by walls, but from a bird's eye view, just looking at things and not being so affected by them. And you figure, if I can't change these things, but I can change the way that they affect me, that is a miracle in and of itself. And then it occurs to you as you kind of open up your filter and not guarding yourself the whole time because you're convinced that life is this or that, because you're seeing things from a nearsighted, scarcity-based perspective. You say, hey, I could probably change some things. Because now that I'm at peace or closer to peace when I think about and observe my experience. I also noticed that, sorry, I'm crusty. I also noticed that my sphere of influence is a little bigger than I once thought it was. Not only is it bigger than what I once thought it was, I'm not even concerned about what lies outside of my sphere of influence. I'm not even concerned about the things that I can't control. I take pride in, my routines, right? What I put into my body, what I make my body do on a regular basis. The small things are now becoming the big things. The small victories are now miracles, right? They're checkpoints. Because I don't put all of my value and my concern into the finish line, I now appreciate the process of getting there. I appreciate the dips as much as I appreciate the peaks. And when I do focus on what's happening around me, it's no longer paralysis analysis and comparison traps. Instead, I see the beauty in life. I see the fortune that other people are experiencing, and I celebrate it as if those victories are my own, because in reality, we're all the same thing. I'm probably losing some people now, but the cool thing about zooming out is that you could take your time with it. You might as well. We're in this shit-eating contest. We might as well take our time. We might as well realize that the sense of urgency I have to get out of this thing might be the thing keeping me in it. And that if I pay a little attention or give a little thought to what I'm running toward, instead of being obsessed with what I'm running from, maybe I'll end up in a place that feels a little better, is conducive to creativity and excitement and joy and pride and generosity and giving and building and contribution. So that's what this is. This is looking at the surface, understanding that the actions that I observe are simply reactions to what happened before, and those reactions come from the beliefs that one has about himself or herself and how they relate to the rest of the world. And those beliefs are just thoughts that we think again and again and again until we cannot distinguish them from reality, which is to say that thoughts become reality, not in some kind of weird magical way. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but that's not what I'm asserting. I'm asserting that when you think it frequently enough, you believe it. What you believe becomes your reality, for better or worse. Why not take the route that's more liberating, empowering? Why not take the route that puts you in a space where more things, bigger things, more exciting things occur to you? Yeah, I like that. That feels better. And then it occurs to you that you can't lose. Not really. Not really. Not as long as you've assumed the creative rights to your story. It's not delusion. I think the true delusion is our compulsive need, our habitual need to create conclusions when we have 1% of the story. Making the meal with 1% of the ingredients handy. Nah. This feels better. As someone who suppressed his voice, his preferences, his priorities, his opinions for the sake of reducing tension in any kind of exchange, personal or business or romantic or whatever, I've learned firsthand the importance of acting, thinking, speaking, feeling in alignment with what I truly believe, in alignment with what I understand life to be and what I understand myself to be. The beauty in that level of clarity, and it intensifies to no end, for as long as you allow it to. The beauty in that clarity is that you no longer look to the bank account to tell you what's possible. You no longer look to your employees to figure out the average or the most realistic projection of how far you can grow in a company. You no longer look to your friends and your family as the template for how to have a relationship or how to raise a family, how to be a good neighbor. Nothing against them, God bless them. You love them, would kill for them, but they're not your template. They're not the ceiling, right? In other words, you have a say. And when it comes to answering the question, who am I? Who should I be? How should I respond? The possibilities open up significantly when you're not following some outdated programs, or again, some programs that never served you to begin with. At least served you in a positive way. Man, I love when I talk like this, not because I'm enlightened, not because I'm smart, not because I'm whatever, but because this is just the truth. And I'm finding myself, I'm feeling that I'm in a space where I'm being receptive to the truth. And it's so refreshing when the lie is so common, when it's so apparent, right? When it's so convincing. It's like, oh, okay, I can ease up a little bit. It's like waking up. Like when you wake up from that dream, that debilitating dream, that shocking, that depressing dream. It's like waking up from that. Like, oh, okay, these two-dimensional images and projections that I was responding to as if they were reality don't really have a hold over my future, over my present, over my past. So this is a reminder of some things that I think you already know. Maybe I'm presenting them in a way that's in a perspective that's different. Maybe I'm using verbiage that speaks to you. Maybe not. But hopefully it encourages you to observe the way you're responding to what you're responding to. Don't make judgments about how you're reacting. Don't make conclusions. Don't analyze the way you're responding, the way you're feeling, but observe it. Observe it. Make the agreement with yourself that it's not my job to figure this out right now. It's not my job to figure anything out right now. For the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'm just going to observe it. And I'm not going to come to any conclusions. Conclusions are heavy. They're the end of ingenuity and innovation and creativity and expression. And conclusions really have nothing to do with your experience. Conclusions have everything to do with your reception to the experience. In other words, conclusion is about how open-minded you'll be to the situation at hand. It doesn't bring you any closer to certainty. Certainty is a myth. Sometimes when I feel anxious, when I feel stressed about what's uncertain, what helps me find peace and ease, ironically, is the fact that I never had certainty. I was just right sometimes. Sometimes. A tiny minority of the time do I have it right with 100% accuracy. The key is that you never had certainty. Don't fear that. Don't fear the abundance of opportunity and variety that this world has to offer. Don't fear that. Don't let that overwhelm you. Don't let the the endlessness of the ocean put fear in your heart. It's beautiful, right? And you're a part of it. The ocean being the world, right? And the infinite possibility that it consists of. Embrace that uncertainty. Make it a thought experiment. Say, look, uncertainty, that thing that usually scares me because I populate it with the worst thoughts that I can possibly concoct. Let me put something beautiful in there. It's like walking into a dark room and say, all right, I'm going to throw some spiders in there, some fucking snakes, right? A fucking burglar, right? I'm going to do that. And while I have to wait, because that's what uncertainty does, it lives in the future and doesn't exist in the present moment. Because if you're in the present moment, you're only observing what is, not the imaginary what if, right? Anyway, instead of populating that dark room with that, I'm gonna put a candle in it. I'm gonna put a moon bounce in it, right? I'm gonna get creative with it. I'm gonna ask myself, what can go right? When I walk into the job interview, I'm gonna be like, why not me? I might not say that out loud, right? Because I don't want them to think I'm pretentious, but in my head, I'm playing that game. Because it's a much more rewarding game to play than, what am I gonna do? What if I fuck up? What if I say the wrong thing? What if they figure me out? What if they realize I'm an imposter, right? What if somebody 10 times as qualified, 10 times more qualified than me is coming right after me or right before me, right? It's much more rewarding to play this game. The one where you're reminded of how right things can go. How much better than your worst case scenario it usually is. And yeah, move into observation, and in that observation you'll find out what you are, right? What your values are, what your priorities are, what your desires are. You'll find out where they come from, and in observing where they come from, some of those desires will go away. Some of your agreements with others or with yourself will go away. It'll be like putting a bunch of weight vests down so you can move more freely. You can be more agile and flexible and make room and time and energy for the things that do align with what you value, what you desire, what you truly prioritize. Things that you value not because somebody told you to value it. Things that you value because that's what truly speaks to you and resonates with you. And as you gain that sense of direction, it gets so much harder to be convinced when everybody else wants to convince you to have fear because they have fear, because they think the stock market is about to crash, because they think this or that, whatever it is, on a micro or macro scale. It becomes so much more difficult to buy into the bullshit. It becomes so much like, yeah. I think from that perspective, all you can do is laugh. When you realize that we're all moving around like schools of fish, just reacting to so many different types of stimuli and suggestions and statements and suggestions and marketing and branding and commercials and dreams and thoughts that become reality for some, or at least they dictate the thoughts and ideas and an entire trajectory of individuals who just accept them without really considering them, contemplating them. Kind of rambling now, but yeah, man. It feels good to zoom out. It feels good to zoom out and gain a newfound perspective on what matters, what doesn't, you know? What speaks to me and what doesn't. What is an empowering and liberating thought and what isn't. And deciding which one to give more screen time in my mental movie accordingly. So I talk a lot, I'm pretty long-winded, but you stuck with me throughout the ride, and hopefully you like where we ended up. I'm not even sure why I shared this. This is stuff that I usually keep to myself, but if this offers an ounce of value to you, then mission complete. And if not, I got something out of it, so be good.